Select hands-free device from mobile phone and enter pin code 0000.
Hey guys, welcome back to Bad Luck Garage. Today we're going to take a little break from the turbos and the nitrous and the hot rod stuff to go over a common issue that you see on the Tahoes, Silverados, Avalanches, Suburbans, actually even the Camaros, Corvettes, pretty much anything with the LS style engine in it. Now what's going on is you're driving down the road, your oil pressure gauge starts doing crazy stuff.
From mobile phone and enter pin code 0000.
You know, sometimes it'll just peg out 80, sometimes it'll peg out, 0, or sometimes it'll just flutter around. In my case, it's doing all of the above. Like sometimes it'll just hold at 80, and it held at 80 actually for about a month. Then one day it just all of a sudden dropped to 0, and of course when your oil pressure gauge drops to 0, the first thing you think is, oh crap, I've got no oil pressure. There's usually some giveaways that that's not the case, and one giveaway is, like I was saying, the oil pressure gauge, you notice it just going crazy. If you've got an actual low oil pressure situation, what you'll usually see is the gauge will steadily drop, or it'll hold really low, like down around 5 psi, but when you rev the engine up, it'll come up a little bit, work its way up. Those are indicators that you've actually got low oil pressure. Along with those indicators, you might hear a lot, well, you should hear a lot of valve train noise, lifters ticking, things of that nature. I didn't have any of that, so when I pulled over to the side of the road, we were actually on our way to Dollywood when this happened. I had the whole family and the Avalanche there, and when this happened, at first I freaked for a second, but then I remember I'd seen this on a Silverado before, and I was like, I wonder if it's just the gauge not reading correctly. So what I did is I got back in the truck, I left it running, I got out on the side of the interstate. I heard like no ticking or anything, and I'm like, if I'm not hearing the ticking and engine noises, then I've probably still got oil pressure. So I drove it to the next exit, pulled over at I believe it was an Advanced Auto Parts, and borrowed their scanner. And sure enough, it pulled up codes for, it pulled up pretty much all the oil pressure sensor codes, and not low oil pressure, but just that I can't remember the exact codes, guys, but it was the codes that said that the readings, the voltage was just off, like the voltage limit exceeded, things like that. And again, that's usually a good indicator that it's not an oil pressure issue, it's actually just the sending unit. So initially I was just going to throw a new sending unit in, and I thought, hey, why not make a video, because this is actually something I see on the forums, on the different Facebook pages all the time. People are like, my gauge is doing crazy stuff. So that's what I'm going to do for you today. I'm going to kind of show you, just take you along with me and show you how I'm going to fix this, and let you know that depending on what vehicle it is, it may be a little harder or a little easier to get to. Okay guys, so when this happens, there are actually several different things that could be causing the problem. Now your first go-to is, of course, the oil pressure sending unit. And this is what a generic oil pressure sending unit looks like on an LS engine. This actually goes behind the intake on the top of the block, in the back. And that's why it's sometimes a real pain to get to. Now, this is a generic part that I got off eBay. I believe it was $12, and it came with a new pigtail, which brings me to the second cause. It is not uncommon for these pigtails, for the wiring to become brittle, come loose, or to be corroded inside here. So a lot of the times you may not even need a new sending unit. You may just need a new pigtail. This has actually been an issue for about 3 months in my Avalanche. But before you just keep on driving it like I did, if you're not somebody who normally, like I said, you can usually hear the engine noises if it's actually an oil pressure issue. You know, I was pretty confident that it wasn't an actual oil pressure issue, but you know, if you're new to this, if you're not somebody who normally works on engines, I highly suggest what you do is shut the vehicle off immediately, get a mechanical gauge to screw in there, restart the engine, and check for oil pressure. Because guys, I don't want you to, if you actually have low oil pressure, I don't want you to blow up your engine because you think, it's just a sensor. So I just want to put that out there. It could actually be an issue with your pump, the O-ring around the pump, you know, cam bearings, rod main, you know, it could actually be an issue, a mechanical issue inside the engine. So it's always good to double check with a mechanical gauge and see if you actually do have a problem or if it's just the sensor before you keep driving the vehicle. In my case, I was pretty confident, so I've just been putting up with the ding, 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 you know, oil pressure warning, and I've been driving the vehicle for like 3 months now. We got no new engine noises or anything, but we are going on vacation soon. I'm gonna have to drive this thing, you know, all the way to Myrtle Beach, so I don't want to have to deal with the dinging and, you know, freaking out over the oil pressure gauge for a 7-hour trip. So we're gonna fix this now. The only vehicle I've ever replaced one of these on is an older Silverado, and on the older Silverados, this is a lot easier to get to. The intake manifold's got a slightly different design, and you've got a little more room under the cowl of the firewall where you can get back there to it. But so this might be a learning experience for me right now too, guys, because I know on this Avalanche it looks like there's a lot less room to work back there. But as far as tools, as far as I know, all you're going to need is a 1 1/16 socket. You know, that'll fit your sending unit there. If we do end up using this pigtail, of course you're going to need a solder iron, you know, wire cutters, etc. Things you would need for well, for soldering wires together. In addition, you might need some universals, some wobbles, you know, to get to this. Sometimes it can be at an awkward angle, and of course, you know, your ratchet. Okay, so on this 07 Avalanche, you can see the cowl here comes way up over the top of the engine, and this part is way back here in the back. So we may have some issues. We'll just have to find out. First thing we're going to do is remove this cover, which just pops up, pulls forward, and comes right out. Okay, so once you get your engine cover off, you're going to take your PCV line right here. You're going to take it loose from the valve cover, loose from the intake, and get it out of the way. Then you're going to take your evap line, which is right here. There's a little push tab here, so you're going to push it, pull straight back to disconnect it, and then just move it over here where it's out of your way. Next thing you're going to have to do is disconnect your fuel rail. Now I happen to have this fuel rail that's out of the truck, so I can kind of demonstrate how this works. There's a little clip right here on the side. You're going to flip that clip up, and then it just comes right off. Then you're going to take your cheap little Harbor Freight tool here that you bought because you were a cheap bastard and you wanted to just, you know, you thought you could get away with just like a $5 tool, and you're going to put it in here and you're going to move the line around and push forward and push back, and you're going to realize that this thing goes in the garbage. So then you're going to go back to Harbor Freight. You're going to buy a good set of fuel line disconnect tools. You're going to put it on there. You're going to push it in till it clicks. You're going to pull this back. The fuel line's going to come off, and you're going to be all happy. Going through all that, you need to stick your rag down there or something, of course, to catch the fuel leaks. And this is the part where you get to start working blind. On the older trucks, like the 06 and back, or really the 07 Classics and back, you don't have to contend with this. This is some sort of heat or sound shield. I'm not sure how to get it off, but it's right in our way because the sensor that we need to get to is actually behind it and down. Now, I can reach back here and I can feel the top of the plug that goes into the sensor, but I can't see it, and I don't think I can wrap my hand around to actually unplug it, so that's a problem. I shine a light behind the shield. You can see there's actually an opening right here under the shield. Can you guys see where that light's shining? That is actually the plug for the sensor. So I think what I'm going to have to do, and I'm not going to be able to get it on film, is I'm going to have to leave my light wedged in there like that, and I'm going to have to reach through there with a very long flathead screwdriver and try to unplug that. So using a very long screwdriver and doing exactly what I was talking about, I was able to reach through there and push up on this clip and pop this connector loose. This is our connector right here, our old connector, and I'm going to just kind of check it out and look for frayed wires or anything to decide if I need to use the new connector. So after looking the old connector over, it looked like it was fine, guys. So I really don't see any sense in using this. I also wanted to mention at this time, I'm going to put links for all these parts where I got them. I got them on eBay, but I'm going to put eBay links in the description of this video. But this sensor, if you buy it in the store, I think it's about 30-40 bucks. I believe I paid 12 or 13 on eBay for this one, and it actually came with this pigtail. So I got it like that just in case I needed this. I don't think I do, but if you look at yours and you find frayed wires or anything, at this point you're going to want to solder this in and probably hook it back up and start the truck and see if that takes care of the problem. For me, it looks like I am going to have to replace this sensor. So on to the good stuff. We got our 1 1/16 socket. I'm going to go ahead and put a universal on here because I'm about 99% sure I'm going to have that. And I'm definitely going to have an extension, so we're going to put that on there too. We're going to try to fish that back behind there. Now guys, I've said this multiple times on the older vehicles, the 07 Classic and back, this is way easier to get to. I'm probably not going to be able to get you guys in here for a really good view, but hopefully you can kind of see what's going on. I'm just going to try to fish this in here. I'm telling you guys, this heat shield that they put on these later models just makes this, you're gonna have to do this all by feel. I mean, there's you really can't see what you're doing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. If you're one of those people that has to like kind of look at what you're doing, you may want to think twice about taking this on. You know, the proper procedure for doing this on this year model is actually to remove the intake manifold. And I'm starting to see why they made that the procedure. But still, if I could get this heat shield off, this would be a cakewalk, guys. So if any of you know a trick to getting this little shield off here, post it in the comments below, because you might help a bunch of people out. After having a nightmarish time getting this thing out, it is finally out, and now I get to wonder how I'm going to get the other one in. You can see the two units here. Now pull this little cap that came in the new one. You're going to notice there's like a little rubber insert in the old one, like a weather pack connector almost. There's not one in the new one, so I'm just going to use a screwdriver, pry this old weather pack out of here and transfer it over to the new unit. Let's get this new sensor put in. I decided, just for shits and giggles, to see if I could get to this filter. There wasn't one in there. Okay, so this is a 07 Avalanche. It's the engine code, what is it, L50 or LC9, which is the aluminum block 5.3 with active fuel management, DOD. And I was under the impression that all of the Gen 4 engines had these little filters in them, but mine did not. And I'm not 100% positive, but I think this was a factory sending unit. So I was of this state of mind. It didn't have one in it to begin with. Why go through the hassle? I'm happy to say it was 10 times easier getting the new one in actually than it was getting the old one out. Not sure why that is. Maybe it's just because, you know, muscle memory. My hand got used to the position it was in, but I was actually able, even with my big extra large hands, I was able to worm my hand in there with holding the sensor, and I got it into position and felt with my finger. This is how us mechanics do it, guys. I felt the hole with my finger and was able to drop the sensor right in, screw it in. Even getting the ratchet, the socket and the extension and everything on there, for some reason it was a lot easier the second time around. So that's all done. Get everything back together. Gotta push your fuel line back on, put this clip in, just worm it in like this, snap it down, take your evap line, put it back on, push it till it clicks, PVC line, plug it into the valve cover nipple back here, the intake nipple up here, snap our engine cover back on, since we had our fuel line disconnected, I'm going to cycle the key forward a couple times to build fuel pressure. You can see it looks like we've got around 50 pounds of oil pressure. We'll rev it up a little. Moves just a little bit. All right, guys, looks like she's fixed. It's really not a tough job, guys. It's just, like I said, it's kind of frustrating having to worm your hand back there and having to kind of feel around for what you're doing because you can't see. Now, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I've only done this one other time, and it was actually on a I think it was an 03 or 04 Silverado, and I didn't even have to take the fuel line, evap, none of that loose, guys. That heat shield wasn't there, the firewall wasn't right up against the back of the engine like that, and on the earlier Silverados, I know for a fact, I mean, it's way easier to get to this stuff. I mean, if you've got a 99 through 07 Classic Silverado, this is probably a 15-20 minute job if you've got the right tools on hand. If you're doing the 07 through, I think, 13 or 14, I don't know if the Silverados are like this, but the Avalanche, so the Tahoe, Escalade, Suburban, they would all be the same way. Get ready to scuff some knuckles, guys, but you can do it. It's not a big deal, just frustrating, and it's a simple fix to a really aggravating problem. Now that that's done, I'm good to roll to Myrtle Beach in a week. So happy about that. Wife's gonna be happy about it. On to the next project. So if you like this video or it helped you out, be sure to share it, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more of these how-to videos, or if you want to check out the turbo truck or the new upcoming 73 Nova LS swap build, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll be notified when I come out with new videos. For now, I got a page, I got to go back to work, so you guys get off the couch and get out in the garage, get something done. I'll see you next time here on Bad Luck Garage.